Right, so welcome back. Let's continue now with more news. During the December holidays, we saw some incidences of missing children, child kidnapping, rape and human trafficking tend to rise in some parts of the country as families travel, routines change, and children may be left unsupervised for more than extended periods of time. It creates opportunities for vulnerable children to become victims of abuse as well as to be exploited. And so to raise awareness regarding the safety of children during the festive season, we're joined by a special guest, Namritha Sivsanker, CEO of Hope South Africa, to unpack this phenomenon and perhaps a little bit more. Namritha, thank you for your time on the SABC at this hour and for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
In my introduction, obviously alluding to some of the causes for concern, particularly for children and vulnerable groups at this time. The work of Hope SA, how did it come to be and what exactly is it all about?
So Hope SA Foundation is an NGO based here in Johannesburg, and we work nationally. We work with disaster relief, gender-based violence, we have food programs, healthcare programs, and wherever there's a need, we are out there addressing these social issues. It stemmed from my drive to want to make a difference in our community from the time I was a little girl. It was my passion to make an impact and just to ensure that children and women affected by GBV and abuse are safe.
Yes. Speaking of which, it's unfortunate that around this time of the year, stories emerge. They're disheartening at best. 12-year-olds being raped, missing children. They're looking at your line of work, the research that also emerges, the patterns, the trends. Why do so many of these stories come to the fore, particularly during this time?
I think these stories are prevalent throughout the year.
Okay.
It's ongoing, I'd say, every year. It's just that the stats increase. And if you look back as far as, say, 10 years ago, the numbers were still absolutely shockingly high.
Yeah.
But what has changed in the interim? Nothing much. I mean, we've introduced sexual education in school, and there just needs to be more done in terms of advocacy, in terms of laws being put in place, in terms of education. So these numbers will rise if there is inaction.
Inaction and even the framework that's meant to support that through policy. I'm just looking at the GBVF Act, some of the gaps as well, the challenges that still pervade that. What are your thoughts about that? Just in the strides that have been taken, but the causes for concern.
So we can have acts in place, but there again we go back to the issue of inaction, and inaction is expensive, and we see that in South Africa, and we see that throughout Africa as a matter of fact. And you've got to have laws that protect children as well as educate parents and the child giver. The parent and the child carer.
Yeah.
So you have to have these laws enforced. You have to have education in place. The gaps are there, and they need to be addressed more effectively, I'd say.
And collaboration is important, right? So when you're looking at all the key stakeholders as well, how effective are we on that front? But what more needs to be done?
Sure, there's a lot that needs to be done.
Yeah.
If we look in comparison to other countries, I'd say Africa has one of the highest rates of child abuse, of teenage pregnancies, whereas countries like Switzerland and Sweden have lower rates. And if you try to correlate and see the factors that influence both, you'd see that education is the number one factor that influences abuse, influences child rape. So once we get our education system and our need for education to be priority, then only will factors start decreasing.
Namritha, I want to fast forward to what happened this week, Christmas Day. We had briefings around the country about, the number of births and babies that had been born. But there were alarming stats coming through. In KZN, 3 15-year-olds giving birth. And in Popo, there were 13-year-old girls. Statutory rape is basically what that is. Yes. Talk us through the causes for concern. Yes, there was a reporting that the numbers had decreased, but 31 from 50 in Limpopo, for example. These are disheartening stats for our nation and what it's reflecting about us at large.
100%. It is shocking. And I also read about the story where a little girl at the age of 13 was pregnant and her mom threw her a baby shower.
Yeah.
So it starts off with your upbringing, your cultural norms, your environment that you're growing up, the community, it starts there. And once parents and the community at large begin to address these issues and see and address the disparities and the myths around contraception, around abuse, then only will we start to see change. In the Eastern Cape, I think there's a high prevalence of rape and childbirth. And there's a high prevalence of poverty as well. So you see those factors coming into play. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in various sectors. It's not just one sector.
It's intersectional.
Exactly.
Yeah, and there's obviously also systemic issues, as you alluded to. I want to look at another cause for concern, because we're speaking about parents and legal guardians. There are also child-headed households that is a reality in South Africa. How do they begin to keep themselves safe? What are their options in terms of survival?
I think it's quite limited, because out there we have NGOs who are working in communities, and there's not enough. If you look at shelters for children and child-headed households, there's not enough to take care of these children. Yeah. There's not enough shelters to take care of abused women and children, and also for men as well. We can't leave men out of the equation. Fair. But there's not enough. And I think these children don't have enough resources. You need sufficient healthcare systems in place. You need sufficient policing. There's a whole integrated network that needs to come into play and be effective to help these children. Prevention
is always better than cure. I mean, we're still looking for justice. That case continues next year. I mean, that's just a microcosm of the macro, which actually leads me to my next point, because during the festive season, you've got an increase in numbers of kidnappings, perhaps, kids going missing. What are some of the do's and don'ts, the safety tips that people should be adhering to at this time?
So I think during the holiday period, there's a lot of families. People are, surrounded by a lot of families, and a huge factor that comes to play when it comes to abuse and rape is that a lot of the victims are being abused and raped by their own family members, and you see that they don't go forward and don't report the crimes because it's family, so it makes it more difficult. Yeah. So I think parents need to educate their children. You've got to educate your children about the dangers of abuse, what is abuse, what to do in the event of abuse, who to contact, to listen to your child, to know the signs of abuse. I think something that needs to be discussed is, what are the signs of abuse? A parent would never know what to look out for if they do not know the signs beforehand.
Yes, absolutely. And just also having that relationship with their children to see changes in behavior, right?
100%.
I know that Hope SA also does a lot of work around the country in terms of food drives, because again, to our earlier point, there are child-headed households. People are struggling. There are triple threats of poverty, inequality and unemployment that still pervade our country 30 years into our democracy. Yes. So when you travel the country, traverse it, you look at some of the improvements, but also some of the gaps, the needs. How does Hope SA come into play and assist?
I think I'm very proud to say that as at this month, Hope SA has reached a milestone of providing 1 million meals throughout South Africa through our daily food programs and food initiatives that we drive. So I'm very grateful for that. And we provide a need where there's a gap. So where there's water shortages, gender-based violence, we educate the community. And one of my goals this year for 2025 is to release my book on gender-based violence and to teach children about abuse and educate especially the Black community. Because I work a lot in the Black community, and you find there are little children out there that don't even know that they have been abused. So that is very heartbreaking. So that is one of my initiatives for next year, and to open shelters for women and children going forward. So our healthcare drive also provides free healthcare screenings, education for women, children, and also providing sanitary pads and free glasses for scholars.
Sure. Namritha, it's going to take all of us to come on board and assist and unlearn, learn and relearn, just given the realities on the ground. I perhaps want to end on a lighter note, but you're fast forwarding to 2025 and you've projected what we can expect. So we'll certainly monitor those developments and congrats on that as well. Thank you as well for your service. What gives you hope?
My hope comes from God. For me, that's my strength. And as I mentioned earlier, from a little girl, I knew that was my core purpose in life. and to be able to share that hope with people around the world.
Okay.
And I think as a country and as a nation, we need a lot of hope.
Absolutely, it's what keeps us going. But it's about alignment and purpose as well, and that's also something we all need to strive for to find. But thank you for joining us at this hour, for sharing your story and your work.
Thank you.
We're wishing you all the best of luck with your future endeavors. I know it's not easy, but stronger we are together. Let's see if the numbers decrease and South Africa can mitigate against some of those triple threats come 2025 and beyond. So this festive season, we know that it is a time of joy, it's also a time of celebration, but it also requires extra vigilance to ensure children's safety. And then, as indicated by our guests today, during this festive season, we're looking at ways parents, caregivers, what they need to do to create safe environments. Perhaps also just ensure that they are places of safety, take all the necessary precautions as well to guarantee their children's safety at large. Again, Namritha joining us this morning to chat about her work. Namritha Sivsanker is the CEO of Hope.